Ninjas. I'm Strident, and I am here with a review of Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Me and Agent O went and saw that yesterday, and we came away blown the fuck away. I could end the review right there. The movie will blow you the fuck away, plain and simple, on every level. Maybe everything on every level. I'm not even going to take away from it. On every level, it's a superb movie. To me, it's the best Marvel movie so far. The only thing that it's lacking is that Avengers was a bigger spectacle because you had so many of these big characters from our childhoods and from, they're big in comics in general, all in one movie. This one, being that they dialed it down, they finally gave Cap his due, and I think the movie's amazing, and in my opinion that makes it the best Marvel movie. Story tight, the characters tight, the acting tight, the action tight. Matter of fact, if there is one area I could give them criticism, it would be how they shot the fight scenes. A lot of the fight scenes were too close, too much of the camera doing stuff. When people are fighting, the camera should be still. It should just slowly follow. It shouldn't be shaking and doing all this crazy shit that a lot of American directors feel the need to, force us to sit through. But besides that, the Russo brothers did their damn thing. They did their damn thing. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail. Perhaps the biggest strength this movie has is the fact that they've established so many of these characters over the last, I don't know what, this is the 9th Marvel film. So over the 8 previous movies, they were able to establish all these characters so that we feel like we know the characters, you know what I mean? And we understand their motivations and why they do what they do and who they are in the grand scheme of this giant clusterfuck of a universe. And it's a good clusterfuck, don't get me wrong. But you just feel that you get them. And you do get them because you've already explored a lot of their intricacies, you know what I mean, and their little details, story details and plot points, whatever you want to call it. You've explored these characters, or you've seen their points being explored, so it's not like it's new to you. When Nick Fury shows up, if you've watched at least 3 of these films, you've seen Nick Fury and you know what he's all about. If you've watched, at least Avengers and one of the Iron Man films, you know who Iron Man is. You know what I mean? So, even though he's not in the movie, when they mention him, you know who he is. If you saw Captain America, you got to see Howard Stark. And so on and so forth. It just, this effect snowballs as far as your amassed knowledge of this universe. And another cool thing is that this mirrors the way the comic book universes have been set up. If you've read comics for a while, a lot of these things are parallels in the comics. You know what I mean? You have S.H.I.E.L.D., you have AIM, you have Hydra. You have Hydra doing things to S.H.I.E.L.D. Granted, some of the stories that you see in the films don't necessarily play out the same way as they did in the comics. It's awesome to see some of those pieces showing up, actually many of those pieces showing up in the live-action cinematic universe. A big plus in this movie. A lot of people said, Scarlett Johansson was the standout character. No, she was the most outgoing. She was written to be a little bit more outgoing than the others. My standout character was the Falcon, plain and simple. And it pisses me off that Hasbro did not release a fucking Falcon figure. I mean, what the hell? You gave us, you re-released, and I understand why they re-released. Now I get why they re-released the Captain America from the first Avenger. But you gave us another Red Skull, still a lame figure, when you could have just given us Falcon, You gave us an AIM soldier and a Hydra soldier, neither of which, technically Hydra is, but AIM is not. And you still didn't give us a Falcon figure, and he was so pivotal. You could have even given us a fucking Crossbones figure, and we would have got the reference, because Crossbones is in the film, although they only refer to him by his real name. But all that aside, Falcon was phenomenal. Anthony Mackie did the damn thing, and it's quality that they actually they were able to cast someone so perfectly in a role for one of these films, opposite of what DC has been doing or Warner Brothers has been doing with their, giant pail of shit that is their cinematic universe. He fit the role. He was physical. His timing was perfect. He seemed like a likable guy, and they didn't write themselves into a hole with those stereotypical black tropes that every other sets of writers love to do with black characters, or as I like to say, brown people. They always write brown folks to, you're a gang somebody, or you used to sell drugs, or you used to steal cars, or you're super cool, so you got to say all the slang and shit, and you just got to be so, I don't know, it's this idea of trying to make the character cool because that's what you assume the populace thinks of these kind of people, or this is your understanding of this particular group of people, and it usually falls flat. And for us being people of color, we see it, and even for those who aren't. My wife watches all kinds of movies, and sometimes she's like, what the fuck, like, people don't act like that, and if they do, that's kind of sad. But it's one of those things, you see it and you're like, ugh. Then you watch this movie and you're like, holy shit, they did him just as properly as they did Blade. No mention of his race ever shows up. They treated him just with as much respect and thought as they did with Captain America. I mean, so much so that when there's a scene where the Winter Soldier breaks one of the wings off of his flight pack, and he's fallen and fallen and fallen, but he's got his contingency because he did this professionally. He used that pack professionally, and that was another thing, the way they tied that into his little plot. You think when he says that he lost his wingman, that he's talking about, wingmen typically, they're pilots. But no, in this, they went the Metal Gear route with some near future tech that was used by soldiers to fly in low enough to avoid RPGs. I'm like, wow, that was brilliant. It makes perfect sense. A while back on one of the podcasts, I said the way they should handle all of these characters, X-Men should be handled with a little bit of the conspiracy theory tied into some military, craziness. Something similar to Metal Gear, and Cap should definitely have a Metal Gear feel to it. This movie had the Metal Gear feel to it. And I don't know, it worked. It worked. It was amazing. Strangely enough, the music was done by Henry Jackman, and it kind of had a Brian Tyler-ish feel to it. I was surprised because I remember reading that Brian Tyler was going to be doing the music for the majority of the Marvel films, and he usually does a great job. His score to Thor: The Dark World was pretty damn nice. It was quality. But Henry Jackman did the music for G.I. Joe Retaliation. At least that was the last thing I remember him doing. And Retaliation was kind of, the music was better than the movie. But in this, it was hitting all the right beats. I mean, you felt tension when it was necessary. It actually was a little bit more dialed down. The movie felt like an older film, and I know that the Russo brothers said that the film was a throwback to like 70s espionage and spy films. And lots of practical effects with real car chases. There was CG in there, but it was mostly real car chases, not CG cars. Real explosions, lots of wires for people doing their crazy jumps, and lots of real stunt work, so the physicality was real. And a lot of these characters, when you're dealing with S.H.I.E.L.D., when you're dealing with Hydra, I mean, Hydra has some super, metahumans and superhuman characters, but S.H.I.E.L.D. does too, but it's a different kind. They're usually just a little enhanced, not 1,000% enhanced. Granted, in recent years, there's all kinds of characters that are part of S.H.I.E.L.D., but classic S.H.I.E.L.D. is super spies. So a lot of the characters, they might have a little bit like, super soldier abilities, or, just something in that realm, or they're just really highly trained. They're like G.I. Joes. That was another thing. While I was watching this film, I was just like, man, this is like a G.I. Joe movie without the Joes. I mean, the scale was right. you had this web of I hate using cliches, but it was a web of intrigue where you had all these characters doing all these underhanded things, and Cap didn't know who he could trust because everything was unclear. And part of the beauty of the film is that things will clear themselves up. It just takes a while, and you learn as Cap learns, you know. But as far as the comparison or the feel of a G.I. Joe film, you had the near future tech, but you still had people driving around in SUVs with their M4 carbines, and you had your foreign enemies using, you know, other weaponry that's kind of, you know, you had Kalashnikovs, and you had freaking, you just had a whole bunch of stuff, you know. You had freaking, goodness, my brain is just like, AKs, the newer AKs. What is the AK-74, I think it's called? I could be wrong. But you had the new AKs. You were just seeing things that, like, if you're aware of these little details when creating characters, or when you see these characters being created in front of you, you realize these are very deliberate details, you know? If you have Russian characters, you're going to have a lot of things that are specifically Russian, especially when it comes to the military, because there's certain things Russian military uses that American military doesn't use, which is why in one of my reviews, I think it was Ultimate Duke, I was like, why does Ultimate Duke come with a AK-47? He wouldn't know. He's a good old boy. He wouldn't be, well, I shouldn't say a good old boy, but he's standard American government issue. He wouldn't be carrying a fucking AK. He wouldn't be caught dead with an AK in his hands. So, you know, stuff like that, those are little details that, you know, hardcore kind of filmophiles and you know, just detail-oriented people, writers, designers, whatever, if you know your shit, you'd be paying attention. If you like Metal Gear, now you know this shit. So going into Captain America, you're going to be like, wow, all the tech in the movie, it fit, it worked well. All the I don't know, the relationships, how, you know, Cap was seeing people, but because he's not used to this world as much as he should be, or as he's getting used to the world, he still didn't think that he would meet someone on the street and then they turn out to be a SHIELD agent in deep cover. That kind of shit was going on, you know. The whole thing was just such a well done film that I can't really find flaws with it, you know. Just the fight scenes. And Cap's his fighting style, I was still amazed. I mean, all the fights were really good. I just wish that they would fucking calm down. Anybody sees The Raid, or Ong Bak, or what was the other one? Tom Yong-goon, the first one, The Protector. You'll see what I'm talking about. There's a scene in Tom Yong-goon that I want to see in a superhero film with a character that can fight, where it's like a 2-minute tracking shot where he goes up several flights or several floors of a hotel, and he's just beating people's ass and moving through rooms and jumping, dropping people from the floors into the central atrium. I mean, it's ridiculous. And the camera just tracks the whole thing from a little distance, from about 5 or 6, maybe even 10 steps away, so that you can see everything. And you could tell they just had it on the arm. Raise it up, move it close, slowly, pull back, move it up, go to the next floor, and you saw everything. Every kick, every time someone slammed into something, you saw it. This is what we needed with Cap. There were a few shots where they pulled back and let you see Cap just run through people, and that was awesome, especially towards the end. I like the fact that in the film, they found a way to tie in something that we see in comics a lot. A lot of times you see an artist might have a preference with a costume for a character, or a writer for that matter. And so they work the costume change into the story. A lot of times in the comics it falls flat because you're like, really? Why did Tony Stark put on the original Iron Man armor to fight some new school threat? You know what I mean? Like, come on, there's no way he would have beat the new school threat in old armor. The whole point of him upgrading the armor is it gets stronger and faster, and it has more gadgets and shit as we get further into the model numbers of his suits. With Captain America in this one, his blue costume that you see in the film is his SHIELD costume. That's why it has his name on it and everything, on his shoulder. There's a portion of the film where he just is like, well, the latter half of the film, he doesn't wear the suit. He wears the freaking first Avenger costume. And I was impressed. I'm like, wow. They actually found a way to make this make sense, and I didn't feel like it was overblown. It didn't feel like it was for no reason. It just felt like it fit. So, all in all, this is just made of win. Scarlett Johansson, if you notice, I'm kind of trying to hit the topics and the parts that I'm not seeing a lot of people focusing on. You know, more people focused on Scarlett Johansson. We already know she's a ridiculously good actress, and she's fucking gorgeous. So that's a given. And there was an endless supply of booty shots with her as she walked by. Waist and booty shots were just like, wow. You know, she was quality. She took the whole typically oversexed character and actually gave her more depth as far as how she, related all those, how she relayed, her lines, and how she, came across emotionally in certain situations. She was extremely calm under pressure all the time. And she also was letting you know that she's kind of used to not letting things be what they seem. Misdirection is just her way. She's used to it. And even with the misdirection, there were a couple times where she kind of gives you a hint that maybe she's not faking, or maybe, this is the real her, or maybe she prefers this. I mean, there's a monologue in there where she explains that, sometimes all things aren't, what did she say? Something like, all things aren't what they seem to everyone all the time, if that makes sense. And it does make sense to me. I hope it made sense the way I said it to you guys. And she explains, sometimes people in their business will choose a persona, and that's who they are. And as long as they can keep that up, that's how they stay alive. Cap is one of those people who he's not going to choose a persona. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to be, Steve Rogers forever. That's him. Until he dies, he's going to be this working, this hardcore, he feels like a working class grandfather or something. You know what I mean? Like, he knows his job, he does what he's got to do, and that's it. He's going to be honest all the time because this is how he was raised, this is what he thinks is right, and this is how he does things. And, you see how his personality and his job working with S.H.I.E.L.D. could conflict. And you see Natasha in the middle of it, and you kind of see that she's so used to, you pick an allegiance, and then you do anything for that allegiance. You see that that's her personality. That's what she's gotten used to doing, and she does it so well, and she doesn't think about it anymore. So, I don't know, the downtime really gave you a lot of insight into the characters that you probably wouldn't necessarily get from some of the other scenes. You got a little glimpse of this in Avengers when she was having her little talks with Hawkeye. And you understand that the two of them have done a lot of shit that they're not necessarily proud of, but they were doing it for the greater good because it's their job and they believe in what they're doing, so they do it and they keep their qualms to the side. It's commendable and it's realistic. Another cool thing was the whole Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson, aka Falcon, which in the film, the Falcon was the name of the exoframe that, the exoframe that was his, wings and all that. But Falcon worked at the VA, Department of Veteran Affairs, and he was in their, goodness, I actually work with the VA, the local VA here. I'm trying to remember the area. Well, he does talks to soldiers that have, they're suffering from PTSD, and he's trying to help them reintegrate back into, civilian, society, just regular world. And it was cool to see how, like, even he had his little issues, and he was learning how to put that stuff to the side so that he can help others who have similar issues, He was explaining reasons for leaving the military, but he still felt that kinship to his fellow soldiers, so he put himself in an area where he can still help them. Then when he meets Cap, he's like, shit, it's the greatest soldier of all time, needs my help. I'm gonna help. I'm re-enlisting to be Captain America's, partner. And that was the other cool thing, is that he treated him as a partner and not a sidekick. And I know there's going to be some really morose, fucking cynical motherfuckers out there that are going to say he was Cap's sidekick, but nothing in the film said he was a sidekick. Everything he did was equally as important as everything Cap did, and he actually achieved his mission a little easier than Cap achieved his. And you'll see that towards the end. It was quality. It was quality. The whole movie was just fun. It was just, I don't know, it fired on every cylinder, and it was just great. And in my opinion, it is the best Marvel movie to date. It seems like Marvel just keeps knocking them farther and farther out of the fucking park, whereas I don't know what to say about DC and Warner Brothers. They can't even find their footing as far as these live action films go, which makes me still say stick with the animated films, because DC has animated films on this level, So, go see this film. It's that simple. Go see it. You're going to enjoy it. It's not a waste of time. See it a couple times. Bring your friends. It's fun shit, Go out and, if you find Black Widow, get one for me, because I'm still looking for her. I'm about to give up on searching, but, get the figures, get some of the books, go read up on the Brubaker runs of Captain America and the Winter Soldier. There's an omnibus that has that whole entire storyline, and catch up on Bucky so you know what's going on. Bucky, he's kind of he's nothing for me to say about him. He did what he was supposed to do. Sebastian Stan did a good job with being emotional and being vicious at the same time. It was like he was vicious in battle, and then when it was downtime and you get to see this one scene where you kind of see them kind of debriefing him. Excuse me, and he explains, that when he first sees Cap, he first fights Cap, the aftermath of that actually seemed like a believable kind of, backlash from someone who's been mind wiped so many times, and then pieces of their memory are kind of popping back into place. He just did a great job. I mean, his role was really simple. He did the puppy dog eye thing, and it was funny because a lot of the women in the theater were like, "Aww." I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not feeling sorry for you, Bucky. You tried to kill Cap. What the fuck is wrong with you, man? But in all honesty, you understand his plight. And I'm convinced that if they do go in the direction that I'm assuming they're going to go, since I think Evans has, 3 movies left? I could be wrong. I think he had a 9-picture deal, so he might have a little bit more than 3 movies, maybe 4 or 5 movies left, but he's getting close. Or wait, no, he said he'd be done in 2017, so I think he has 3 more movies. It's like Avengers, Cap 3, and something else, or maybe this Avengers and Cap 3, but if indeed they are about to kill off Captain America to make Bucky the Winter Soldier become the new Captain America, I'm convinced that Bucky could do a good job. Sebastian Stan could do a good job, carrying the mantle. So, I'm on board. Whatever Marvel is going to do next, I want to see it. Because it seems like they really know what they're doing. They respect their fan base in the sense that they're not really going too far off the beaten path with these stories when they adopt them to film. And that's pretty much what you needed to do. I mean, yeah, they're adding twists, so it's not exactly what you read, but the twists work because all the players are still the same. The setting is still basically the same. They're just making it make more sense, and they're doing what DC does with their animated films, and they are trimming the fat. And I love it. You know me. I've told you that kind of storytelling works for me. Trim the fat and get to the fucking point. Let us see what's going on. So, anyway, I am Strident. This has been my review on The Winter Soldier, Captain America, The Winter Soldier. It is a win. Go see it. Go see it. Go see it. Go see it. I can't stress it enough. And that's it for me. You've been great. Peace outside.